when I go to Europe, it's very bizarre, John, to hear people who are going to be beneficiaries of Trump's foreign policy damn him and then praise people who would not lift a finger to help Europe in a crisis.
Trump, a leader who prioritized American strength and stability in global affairs, is constantly criticized, even by those who benefited from his policies. Meanwhile, leaders like Kamala Harris are cheered, despite showing an almost comical inability to address serious issues. Kamala Harris's campaign barely mentions resolving global conflicts or addressing economic crises, and obsessed over issues like immigration and climate change, which aren't the most pressing concerns facing our nation and the world. While Trump focused on real issues, countering China's aggression, holding NATO accountable, and securing peace deals in the Middle East. Watch how David Hanson exposing this ludicrous, blindsided behavior.
Trump's re-election is hardly being welcomed in Beijing today.
No, it is not welcomed. And of course, on the far right, there was always a conspiracy theory because of the lab leak that people felt. I don't subscribe to that, but this is a sign of what the right thought of China. They felt that the whole COVID that originated in China was somehow connected to the Chinese fear of Donald Trump and wanting him out, when in November of 2019, it was almost sure that he was going to be reelected. He was ahead in the polls. He would have been reelected if it had not been for COVID and the lockdown and then the George Floyd riots, which I think in themselves were a result of the lockdown, their intensity. So China realizes that for all the talk about they are ascendant and they are all powerful and they have a bigger military, they still have, I think, and most economists will agree, that they still have only about 70 to 80% of our GDP. They have 4 times the population, and of very crude formations. It takes 4 Chinese workers to approximate 70% of what one worker does in the United States. We're a very productive society, and in many areas, for all of the Chinese stealing and copying, we're much more preeminent. And under Trump, I think China will be faced with a lot of things that is going to bother them. They have over 300,000 students come here. Most people think 2 or 3% are actively engaged in espionage. I don't think that's going to continue. I think that they have a lot of asymmetrical tariffs. They know that. I think for everyone, Trump will try to outdo their tariffs. Not a blanket tariff, but a tit for tat. I think he will tell the Chinese, if you go and bully the Taiwanese or the Philippines or any of our more prominent allies, we have ways of retaliating against you, and we will do that. And we wish you wouldn't do that. The thing about it's so strange is that under prior Republican administrators, candidates that believed in the same theory of deterrence as Trump, there was kind of a braggadocio that was different than Trump's. They actually would kind of brag that we want to go to war with them or something. Trump talks a great game, but he does not want to destroy relations with China or any of our adversaries. He just wants to remind them that they have overreached and what they're doing is not in their interest, and they will stop it. But he doesn't really want to go to war. And there's no idea of going into Iraq or Afghanistan or bombing Libya like Hillary did to create some type of utopia. He doesn't have any dreams like that. It's all Jacksonian, and he wants to protect the Western world. And when I go to Europe, it's very bizarre, John, to hear people who are going to be beneficiaries of Trump's foreign policy damn him and then praise people who would not lift a finger to help Europe in a crisis, or would, when Trump said to the Germans, "You're playing with fire with the Nord Stream pipeline #2, and you're heavily dependent on natural gas, and we better stop that for your own benefit." Biden then said he was a warmonger, or he was alienating our ally, and then they went over. Trump tried to stop the pipeline. Biden came in and greenlighted it, which was, I think, unfortunate. And the same thing, they said Trump suspended armaments. He did not. He everything that the Congress approved, he sent to Ukraine eventually. Biden came in and put another arms embargo on Ukraine. And he said he would only react if it was a major invasion, if Putin went into Ukraine. He asked Zelensky, do you want to ride out? We'll fly you out of Kiev the first week. So it's a very strange paradoxical disconnect where people who are beneficiaries of American muscularity attack the person who cares for them or wants to help them, and then praises the multilaterals people who appease and would allow them to be very vulnerable. And yet it's all emotional. They just don't like Donald Trump's visage. They don't like the way he looks. They don't like his accent. They don't like his mannerisms. They don't like his language. So they can't get over that.
Hanson highlighted how the media often focuses on Trump's appearance and style rather than his policy results. For instance, Trump's blunt warnings to Europe not to rely on Russian power were seen as controversial, but they ultimately delivered results. In contrast, Biden's approach to foreign policy has backfired, with the greenlighting of the Nord Stream pipeline being a prime example. Trump's administration has also been critical of China's trade practices, which other leaders had avoided for years. It's interesting to note that despite Trump's tough stance on China, his administration has actually been more effective in delivering results than his critics give him credit for. Hanson pointed out that Trump's policies have benefited Europe, yet many Europeans still criticize him while supporting leaders whose decisions weaken them. People's dislike of Trump's appearance, accent, and way of speaking often clouds their judgment of his policies. This emotional reaction, rather than a factual assessment, is what drives their opinions, making it difficult for people to separate their personal feelings from the actual results of Trump's policies. Now let's look at Biden's approach. Unlike Trump, Biden was hailed by the media as a unifying diplomatic leader. Biden reversed Trump's energy policies, allowing Nord Stream 2 to proceed. This move emboldened Russia, signaling weakness and paving the way for its aggression in Ukraine. While Trump's blunt style, his off-the-cuff remarks, and his unapologetic patriotism kept enemies in check without dragging the U.S. into endless wars, which also didn't sit well with the elites. Biden, on the other hand, is polished. He gives prepared speeches, smiles for the cameras, and talks about restoring America's soul. But while the media praises his tone, the results speak for themselves. Trump, for all his flaws, prioritized American strength and global stability. Biden, despite his calm exterior, has led America into uncertainty. It's time to stop focusing on appearances and start judging leaders by their actions. Europe is paying the price for ignoring Trump's warnings. America is paying the price for celebrating Biden's platitudes.